Okay, let me turn off and let me just double check that we're live. I think we are live. I'm like on the wrong screen. All right, we're live. Sorry, guys. We are officially live, and I am here today with Staci. I'm going to let you say your last name, Staci, in a second. Um, she is the proud owner of a mole dog, and she owns molepups.com. And I thought it would be really great to have a conversation about mole dogs, what they do when you use them, and just to hear a little bit of her story as to how she got into doing this. So, Staci, welcome.
Hi, thank you. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
You are so welcome. We're both passionate about educating people about water damage and the issues around water damage and helping people on their journey. So tell people a little bit maybe about your backstory, about how you started doing inspections with a mole dog, and then I'll ask you some more questions about your mole dog.
Yeah, absolutely. So my family, we bought a house about a year ago, and at the time we didn't do a mold inspection, and I really wish we would have. I didn't have Gus. He had been in training when we bought the house, and when I brought him back, he has been. I took him through our bathrooms, and our bathrooms were covered in mold. My vanity was getting ready to fall through the sink.
Oh, wow.
Leaks. It was pretty bad. My kids were sick. My husband had developed Marcons, um, and we had nosebleeds. Oh gosh, strep throat, ear infections, just unexplained illness after illness, and it really opened my eyes up to what the dangers of mold. And so Gus got trained, and we've been doing it for about 6 months now. I'm working on my certified mold inspector certification. So I got into it just watching family and friends be sick. But I also have a deeper and a kind of a darker mold story that I don't share with very many people, but I'm going to share now. My husband used to play professional baseball, and we were in spring training when I was pretty early in my pregnancy. Um, we were down in, oh, not Clearwater, Fort Myers, Florida, where he was for spring training. We were there for about 2 months, and we were in a condo that had just there was mold. And 15 years ago, I didn't really know much about mold. I knew when I walked in, I could smell it. But in those 2 months, we were exposed to some type of mold. After my husband, we went to Boston and started playing there. I saw a new doctor, and he noticed that I was measuring large. So we went and did a an ultrasound, and they noticed that she had fluid on her lungs. And we did a couple of procedures where they would go in and stick the needle into my belly, into her lungs to pull the fluid out. We did that a couple of times, and we were told that we might spend, some time in the NICU. But after she was born, she lived for 22 hours, and we weren't given any answers. We were told nothing. We had some of the best doctors in the country with Boston Children's, and at the time, mold was never even thought of or considered. After the autopsy, they realized that she had an abnormally small heart and fluid on her lungs, and that she was never going to be viable for life. So, all that to say, I started researching mold. And when I found out that when it crossed the placenta barrier, it affects the heart and lungs. And this is why I've started Mold Pups. It's a mission field for me. I don't think a lot of people realize that it can affect your reproductive system and your just everything. And so I don't tell many people that story because it can be a little upsetting, but I think it's time that people realize that there's issues with mold, and when you're living in mold, it can affect you in different ways.
So sorry that you went through that. And it is sort of crazy the way God uses our journeys, as a mission field and uses our journeys to help others, even though, we've gone through something horrific and really, really difficult. But mold is, yeah, does impact the body. And if a mom's pregnant, my son is still very sickly from mold. And I was in mold my whole life, ever since I was 3 years old, and I didn't know it. And he had so many health issues, and he still has challenges. He just doesn't want to go down the mold rabbit hole. But and then I never could have kids again. And I'm positive, my hormones and everything, because I was in Staci from like 3 years old
Mhm.
on up, and then other moldy places. I had no knowledge of mold, so you don't know what you're exposed to, but people don't realize we are being exposed, and we don't know it, and we often don't see it, or smell it. So maybe you can share a little bit about when do people bring in when's a good time to bring in a mold dog? What do you recommend when people are reaching out to you, and maybe just sharing what a mold dog does and what they can do and what they can't do.
Yeah. So with a mold dog, mold dogs are not the end all be all. Um, I've found that when you have the canine scent detection, when you have the tools and you have the human, and sometimes when you have the air testing, that's going to give you the best idea of what's going on in your home. So a mold dog is not the end all be all, but they're fantastic. I recommend them just because when I've seen what Gus can sniff out and what he marks is crazy to me because most people can't do that. You can't go into a place and walk in near a sink and smell mold and just, but Gus can. And he's so good at what he does. I love watching him work. He's, he gets pretty, he gets excited when he knows that he's got an appointment. But once I put him in that kennel and we start driving, he calms down. And it's so funny when I open that door, he pulls his head out, he's looking, and I'm like, all right, you ready to get to work? And you can see him. He's like, yeah, let's go. So I pull him out of the car and he's like pulling me into the house. So he's so excited to get to work. Um, but a lot of people I talk to, mostly moms, that have been to doctor after doctor after doctor, and they know something is off, but they don't know what it is. Their kids are sick, there's unexplained illnesses, and they're searching for answers. Some of them have had, some moms suspect that there might be a mold issue, and they have someone brought in and they're air testing, and things come back clean. Well, I'll bring in Gus, and he will mark a couple of windows and a couple of things that I'm just like, wow. So, like, here's an example. We did a home that's 4 years old, beautiful home, very very well built, nice builder, everything. And the lady had spent $4,000 on air testing and was told your home is clean. Everything looks good. So she hires Gus and I because she's like, Stacy, I know something is wrong and I don't know what it is, but my gut is telling me that I need you to come in and just check. So we did, and Gus marks not every single window, but almost all the windows. And after they had started remediation, they had found that the windows had been installed incorrectly and had all failed, and that the mold in those windows were just sitting in there. The insulation was wet, and here's the kicker though. So this home, the daughter, she was, I think, probably 6 or 7. They had put the mattress on the floor, in by the windows and everything. Well, Gus marked the window and he marked her pillow where the mattress was. And I asked the mom, I'm like, does she go to bed with her hair wet? And mom was like, yes, all the time. So she had developed like a tick in her throat. She was like clearing it and could not clear it, and just unexplained illness after illness with her. So Gus marked the window and her pillow. And I told her, I was like, let's get her out of this room. This room is pretty moldy. And within 3 weeks of being in a different room, different bedding and everything, that tick went away. So that mold was really affecting and overloading her system. And once you remove that mold or remove yourself out of that environment, I think you can start to heal a lot better. And
Yeah, you
so,
Yeah, I was going to just comment. I just want to tell people air testing is a standard, but mold spore air testing misses mold 95% of the time. If they're doing an air test in the middle of a room and the mold is in a wall, you're not going to pick it up on an air test. So it is a standard and it's every tool tells us something, every test tells us something different, but
Mhm.
that isn't the only test I would ever recommend if you think you're dealing with mold. I mean, a mold dog is a more expensive route to go to find the source. But even just starting with an ERMI or an EMA desk cloth test or a mycotoxin test, that's an air mycotoxin test through Respire Air. I just did one in my home. We have building material mold, low levels, but I was able to confirm where I thought it was. And I don't react to it. My body doesn't seem to react to it. But we did a mycotoxin air test through Respire Air, and we had moderate mycotoxins in our guest room. And our house is 7 years old. It was a new build when we bought it, and we knew we had some building material mold, and at the time did not know how to find it. Now I found it and the door's closed and nobody goes in that room and the rest of the house is fine. Figuring out what I want to do, but I don't really want to put guests in that room now that I've verified with a test. But yeah, every tool tells us something different, every test. But I would caution people to believe their mold spore air test. The canister test is like a 5 minute um, air sample, and it's often not enough to pick up mold. So sorry, I just wanted to throw that out there.
Well, another thing, like the black molds, the Stachys, those are a wet mold. Like they're not in the air. Those are a heavier mold and they're not in the air as much. And so when you're doing the air testing, you're missing those. And it's so infuriating to me because one, like this, my client spent $4,000 being told her home was clean and her home is not clean. She's spending a lot of money to remediate. And she's like, I just feel duped by this person. And so that's it. That's it exactly.
I
I
don't
do
know.
air well, I
Yeah, I
do
don't
air
know why.
testing. Hmm.
Hmm.
I'll do air testing. I don't, but it's in conjunction with the dog. You've
Right.
got Gus, you've got the tools, you've got the moisture meter, thermal imaging, borescope,
Right.
the inspector, and then you can, so you've got the whole thing to be able
You
to
got the
give you the
full
best idea.
picture. Right. You
Mhm.
got the full picture. Right. An air test doesn't give people the full picture. And as a health coach, I see it all the time working with clients with mold toxicity. A landlord or their home is air tested and they're like, it's fine. And we know it's not fine. We know as soon as they leave the environment, they feel better. So it's not the right test to give the full picture. And there are these other options, like a mold dog, like an ERMI and EMMA, a mycotoxin air test, a mycotoxin dust cloth test to verify that there's an issue in the environment. But what's unique about the mold dogs is they're helping you find the source. And it really takes an inspector playing detective, to find the source, especially like my house is a new build. I had people come in, nobody could find anything, but we consistently on ERMIs had building material mold. And I healed here. And not everybody's different in terms of what levels of exposure they can handle. We're all exposed. It's just what can your body handle?
Mhm.
So, any tips when somebody's looking into getting a mold dog, when to consider getting a mold dog?
Well, so depending on your situation, if you're looking to buy a home, I would absolutely hire a mold dog before any inspectors come in. So when Gus comes in, like here's an example. We did a pre-purchase inspection a couple of weeks ago. Gus goes in, we find several things. The home inspector or the anyone else that they hire, it gives them a starting point. So Gus marks the bathroom sink. I'm going to go in there and I'm looking. I can boroscope. I'm trying to confirm the mold. Well, then the leak detector can come in and it just gives you a better idea of what's going on.
I
So,
like that idea. It's
yeah.
expensive, but I like that idea because then you're
So,
assured. Yeah.
mhm. And those pre-purchase inspections, mostly those are a lot cheaper because they go a lot quicker and, there's people coming in behind me, so I don't need to do as much confirming as I need to. Like it kind of gives them a place to start. But if say you're not doing a pre-purchase inspection, you're in your home and you're having some issues, maybe a kid is sick and it's in your gut, you have that feeling. Gus and I will come in and smell the whole house. Like we're looking in crawl spaces, attics. He can smell behind the walls, HVAC. So when he comes in, we'll have him go through the whole thing. And when he marks, or I'm sorry, when he sits, that's a signal to me that he's smelling mold. I'm like, Gus, see, or show me. And he'll point with his little head in the direction of where he's smelling the most concentrations of the mold. And then I'll put that piece of tape right there and we'll go through the whole house. I've been in crawl spaces, attics, doing everything I can to find if where that mold is if he marks. So
So
yeah.
let's hit on the topic of if, because I always talk about this as a coach, and we talked about it before we got on, that mycotoxins that mold emits, and that's really an aspect of water damage, that an aspect of mold that makes us so sick is the mycotoxins. Mold dogs can't smell mycotoxins, correct? Because mycotoxins have no smell, and they're so tiny. They're the size of COVID-19 virus particle wise. So they're not visible to the naked eye. So if you were going into a house that had mold and it had been remediated, but they didn't clean up properly, they didn't do small particle cleaning, there was still an issue. Could the mold dog be useful then?
Absolutely. So you're right. Um, you cannot the mycotoxins are odorless. So when Gus, if he marks at a certain spot, I know that he's smelling what's the mold is off gassing or the spores that he's picking up. Because how a mold dog works, they've been trained to sniff out 16 types of toxic mold. They've been imprinted um, on viable and non-viable, the wet and dry molds. So he's been imprinted on those molds and then rewarded, reinforcement rewarding. I'm kind of his food bowl. Like when he marks and I feed him. Like it's a reward treat type thing. He gets really excited, and he also gets really upset when, I put the tape there first and I forget to feed him. He wants his food. He likes his treat. So it's kind of funny. But here's an example. We did an inspection a couple of months ago. We found mold in the bathroom toilet area and in the shower. I think the gasket had failed. The what is that? The toilet.
Yeah, the ring around the toilet. Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
think you're right. Yeah.
And so we marked that area, had someone come in to remediate, and after they remediated, they didn't small particle clean, and that's another issue we got to talk about. But there was no small particle clean, so Gus comes in and he remarks that area, and there's still mold issues there. So we had to do this a couple of times because the remediator didn't get all the mold the first or second time. But after that small particle clean, where you HEPA
Can we
vacuum
tell
everything.
people? I know what small particle clean is and you do, but can we tell people what small
Yeah.
particle clean is? Or do you want to? Or I'm happy to.
Well, I can't. We'll hit on it both together. So, small particle clean is what needs to be done after you have a mold remediation. So, I don't. It's even depending on like containment area, you still need a small particle clean. And that's how you do it is you HEPA vacuum all the surfaces. You want everything HEPA vacuum. Then you take a cleaning solution like vinegar, you can do EC3 wipes or a couple of different things and wipe down every surface. I've also heard of a different product where, well, I don't want but so you wipe down all the surface and then you come back and then you HEPA vacuum again. I've heard it called like taco cleaning. It's like a I'm like, I like that.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
like a,
start calling it
a little
taco
sample.
cleaning.
Yeah.
Yeah. So after that
So
small
you're
particle,
Well, you're cleaning up what's left in the air, the mycotoxins that can't be seen, the things that can't be seen once they've removed the mold. And I know, like my house, since we didn't get rid of the building material mold, I had a friend who was a building biologist. We were told to small particle clean, and she said, "Why? You didn't get rid of the source." So the source is still creating mycotoxins. So we chose not to small particle clean, which is, it can be pretty expensive if you're small particle cleaning an entire house and you're not doing it yourself.
it's a time consuming thing and it can be expensive. And just because you really do need to wipe down and vacuum every surface to make sure those mycotoxins are gone. And you got to, use your throw your rag away and start over. And it's just kind of a little bit of a process, but it does need to happen because, well, for example, when Gus comes in, he's still picking up on those spores that are still there, and he will mark. And your post remediation has failed, and we got to keep going because when you spend this much money on remediation, you want to get it correct. You want to make sure that mold is truly gone. And so that's why I'm like, you always have to have a third party remediation check after you
Yeah.
remediate.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
tell people that too. And I'm sure the remediators just love you if you're coming in and telling them. Because I haven't always, I wouldn't trust a remediation company. And I've had clients who've been through this where they didn't do it right or they didn't find all the mold. And I can tell by the patient's symptoms that they're still being exposed. I don't know if people really want to go back to a company that messed it up and didn't do it right the first time, but
Well, how many times I've talked to numerous clients, well, people that have done this before that remediated, they found the mold, they remediated, but they didn't get it all. They didn't have that post remediation check. They didn't have the mold dog come out. And a couple of years later, they're having to do it all over again, spending that money to do it all over again. So I know it is a little bit upfront cost to get that tested, but do it because if they don't get all the mold, you're going to be remediating again a couple of years if you're still reacting to it.
well, and on top of that, the cost of your health
Hmm.
and the impact of the healing journey, and the longer you're exposed, depending on what you're exposed to, I find the longer people are exposed. I was exposed a long time, the more expensive the journey can be,
Yeah.
just because it's a process. And so there's just hidden cost to your health if you don't realize it's negatively impacting your health. I've had several cancer patients who did not know they were living in water damage, and were fighting for their life, but they were all in water damage. So treatment, the mold was really suppressing their immune system and could have been the root cause of the cancer. So a lot of times people don't realize they're chasing fixing an illness or treating an illness, that the root cause is their environment. And if they address the environment, the body can, with help, start to do what it was designed to do and get those toxins out of the body, and the body can start to function right.
You're absolutely right. You can't heal when you're living in mold. It suppresses all the things. I mean, all the medical terms. I don't know. I'm so glad that but it does. It suppresses everything, and you get reinfected with strep, or I mean, it's just living in mold. It's hard to heal. So I agree with you.
Yeah. And I want to just remind people we're always being exposed to mold outside, inside. Inside, we're
Mhm.
not supposed to be being exposed to toxic mold, low levels of toxic mold in a home. It's hard to know if you're doing an ERMI, is that coming in from being tracked in from windows, but everybody's different. So I don't get freaked out about very low levels of toxic mold in a home. But if a person's reacting and sick, I look at the bigger picture. Is it mold? Are there actinos? Are there endotoxins? What are there other toxins in the home? Is the water, are they getting toxins in the water, lead from their pipes? But looking at that toxic burden, on the body and from the environment. So I don't think we need to avoid and have zero mold in a home, but we want low levels of toxic mold that your body can handle. I tell people moderate to high levels of toxic mold on any kind of test is not good for us to be exposed to. Even if your body's able to handle it, it's a burden. If we're
Mhm.
in the house, sleeping in the house, it's a burden on the body that it has to deal with that usually catches up with people at some point.
It sure does. I mean, my husband was a professional baseball player, and I saw mold take him down pretty quickly, with the Marcons and all of that. So we thankfully got him some help, and he's in recovery for sure. But yeah, I saw that happen pretty quickly to a very healthy, strong guy. So
Yeah, it will take people down at the knees, and the process for healing is different for each person. I know people who've healed very quickly because they weren't exposed very long, and my journey was a process of years because I was exposed my whole life. So you can't even compare your journey with somebody else's. Our
mm-mm.
all journeys are all unique. Um, So what do you love about what you do? And I think you should send me a picture of Gus so I can like post it so people can see who Gus is. Um,
I would, okay, Gus is a cutie. I mean, he's an Australian Shepherd with light blue eyes, like just precious dog. What I love about my job is helping people. So it is stressful when we do a mold inspection. And if Gus marks, I can feel the stress in the people. But a lot of them are just searching for answers. And if I can help give them some answers, some referrals and recommendations, here's what the next steps on what you need to do. I feel like I'm making a difference. Because, and I've said this before, I'll probably say you'll hear me say it all the time. I think the mold is the Wild West.
yeah.
People are looking to make some money and making a quick buck, and they're going to tell you what they want to hear, what you want to hear to make that money. And so if I can be a light, if I can be someone that is like, here's what you need to do, here are the steps, that's what I want to do. And I really enjoy that part. I really enjoy connecting with my clients. It's not where I come in, Gus does his work, and I'm out. So, I mean, I'll do a report, an individual report, and you have access to me at all times if you have any questions or concerns. So I take it on more of not an advisor, but I've been through this, I've lived through this, I've remediated through this. Let me help you, and here's what I recommend and what you need to do.
And
So,
you're inspecting
mhm.
along with using your dog. Does every person who has a mold dog do an inspection as well, or some just are marking the spots, but they don't inspect with a moisture meter, thermal camera, all of that?
I think you got a little mixture out there. I think there's some old dog handlers that have their CMI and they are mold inspectors. And then you have some that just work the dog and they're out. You get no reports, you get nothing. Um, and those, that's how people choose to run their business. It's totally fine. I just want to help a little bit more
So
because
anything, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, like, whenever, when we leave a client's home and they're, they're looking for the next steps, I want to help them out with that.
Any recommendations then if people are looking for a dog, what to ask? Like if they're calling you or some other person, because you're in Tennessee, so I'm assuming you and Gus stay in a certain vicinity in terms of um, going to
We
homes.
we do travel. We're in Nashville, but we travel, especially like in the southern states, Alabama, Louisiana. I'm going to Texas in Christmas, so I'll be in the Lubbock area, and I'll be working Gus there. But what you're looking for in a mold dog is training. It's all about the training and the ongoing training. Where was the dog trained with? What type of mold has he been trained on? Is he able to pick up the viable and non-viable molds? Some dogs, I don't know. My dog Gus was trained by Bill Whitstein by Florida Canine Academy, and Bill's kind of the gold standard. He's been doing it for 30 years, and his dogs are very well known in this field. And so I recommend dogs trained by Bill Whitstein. I know there's other trainers out there that have probably done some really good dogs as well. But you're looking for a dog that I don't want a dog that comes in and is jumping all over the place and kind of, there's some that like do that. Mine's real calm and chill and collected. And then you've got the Belgian Malinois that are kind of excited and ready to go and they're jumping around to find the mold. So there's a little bit of different, different dogs out there. I think you want to know about their ongoing training. Are they what kind of training are you doing weekly? Gus and I we do weekly hides. So we'll go to different places and we'll hide the mold and make a game out of it and just have a good time with it. And he loves it. So that's kind of how I keep him sharp. We also every 2.5 months, Bill and I connect and we recertify. So it's
How
an
often do
ongoing
you have to
training.
how often do you have to recertify?
Well, so we do it throughout the year. With Bill, it's a yearly certification, but you can work on it every couple of months, and instead of just one big test and
Okay,
everything.
longer.
Yeah, we just do it every couple of months.
It's very educational, even, for me to hear, the process of the training and what to ask. Because I think people who are listening are going to get a lot of good information out of this. I'm going to tell people I didn't say this in the beginning. We're streaming live from Zoom. So if you have questions, put them in the chat. I will tag Stacy in this so we both can, respond. Or if I see she needs to answer the question, I'll make sure she sees it or I tag her so that she can respond because we can't see you. It's just too hard for me to do Zoom and watch comments on Facebook. But I hope people found this helpful and educational. Stacy, is there anything you want to add? And I want you to be able to tell people how they can find you.
Yeah. So I'm Staci Sutton, and my company is Mold Pups. You can find us on at moldpups.com, Instagram and Facebook. It's Mold Pups. So if you have any questions, let me know. I'm happy to answer anything you have. So thank you, Heather. Like I cannot tell you how much fun I could talk all day long about mold about
I
this.
could too. I could talk about mold and healing from mold and all those pieces too. And I think it's just important for us to educate people about, this option that's there to help them find the source or to determine if their home is in a safe place. And just what you're doing. Like I said, I don't think I've met somebody who inspects with their dog, but I haven't interviewed anybody on social media. So I'm going to write up a little notes. I'll put your contact information, on the Facebook, the feed, and I'll tag you so it ends up on your side. But I do appreciate you taking time out of your day and send me a picture of Gus, and I will post it so everybody can see who he is. And
I'll send that to you.
thank you so much. I'm sorry that you had this crazy journey, but I'm glad that it's being used to help others.
Well, thank you, Heather. I appreciate you having me on. I loved it, and you keep doing what you're doing. I love listening to you, and your education on mold and different issues is fantastic. So keep that up. I love hearing it.
Thanks. Have a great day.
You too. Take
Bye,
care.
everybody.